Hi, so this is a short video with some fundamentals or some basics about ancestral healing. So the first thing I want to talk about is who are the ancestors? And for the purpose of this, the ancestors of this work we're doing, the kind of ancestral connection and healing work that I do, the ancestors are our ancestors of blood and bone. So we're related through our DNA. We find who they are through our birth parents. This often brings the question of what do I do if I don't know don't know who my parents are. And for the purposes of this kind of ancestral healing, it doesn't matter at all. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You can still heal your lineages if you've been adopted, if you don't know who your parents are, if you have no idea about who your ancestors were or are. Usually what we do when we start ancestral healing is we focus on the four main lineages. So what that means is we look at your parents' parents and their lineages, and we follow the same gender, if you like. And so this is like biological gender. I know that's not always a simple, clear-cut thing, but in this case we're looking at, in general, we're looking at your mother's lineage, so following the mother line, your mother's father's lineage, following the father line from there, your father's father line, following all the fathers on that lineage, and your father's mother line. So that that's the very basic aspect of following the biology, but there's other questions about who are what does it mean even in terms of the ancestors. And for the purposes of this, again, I'm going to look at a number of assumptions or premises based roughly or loosely on the premises or assumptions of Dr. Daniel Four. And those assumptions are, the first one is that consciousness continues after death. Most people in the world, at least most traditions, I can certainly think immediately now of people I know who don't believe this. However, that's an assumption we have for ancestral healing. Some part of our consciousness continues after death, or consciousness continues after death, and some part of that is in the ancestral realm, is to do with the ancestral realm. Some cultures, traditions around the world have different explanations of what happens after death in terms of we go to different places, or there's different aspects that, that go to different places. For this purpose, we're just saying consciousness continues after death. The second one is that we all have ancestors who are wise and well and loving. The third is that not all the dead are equally well. And the reasons for that is that they may have come about is it might be some people have not lived well and not made amends or made good before they die. People may not have received the support they needed during life. They might have individuals, families, and whole countries, whole communities may have experienced great trauma, a great dislocation, and have not metabolized that during their lifetime. There can be huge amounts of grief or trauma It just haven't. It's just been too big. They're too shocking, too big. There's been periods of war, and things like that. There's also the fact that, especially for those of us who are from European backgrounds, the fact that many of the traditions of connection with the ancestors have been lost, sometimes thousands of years ago. And so those ways of tending life and death have not been upkept, and the ways of healing through these passages have not been upkept either. In so many ways, we've lost the way of ways of honouring and restoring with the invisible worlds, along with the loss of connection with the natural world, and a loss of the worldview and the ways of honouring our connection with the rest of life and our part in the fabric of life in that way. So the next premise, the fourth, is that the dead can change just like the living. Just like those of us who take on healing work or have different experience, receive a lot of support, have heart opening, do really live really, really well, can change, so can the dead. The fifth is that the living and the dead can communicate. The sixth is that the living and the dead can strongly affect one another. And what this means is that they can affect us in really positive ways. You know, some people seem to just sail through life. There can be a lot of invisible support for them from a well and vibrant lineage, connected to the ease of the lineage. And some people struggle with addictions. You see whole families with certain tendencies and qualities. Likely there's ancestral trouble there. A lot of what can be interpreted as or diagnosed often as psychiatric or psychological issues, a lot of that can be coming through lineages as well. Lineages that aren't healed, lineages with a lot of distress in them. So that's the introduction, or that's some of the really basic points around where we're going with ancestral healing and who the ancestors are. And I'm going to leave it there for today.